I have been prostituting to fend for my husband's marriage. Story time. Let me preface by saying that my story is one weird one, but they say a problem shared is a problem solved, so I'm hoping this will give me some solutions. Anyway, my husband and I met when I was in uni and he was working. I attended uni in the capital city, but originally I come from a very small town outside the capital city, so I was just in the capital city purely for education. I come from a household where I was raised by my aunt, who's also my mom's sister. And you know how things can be sometimes being raised by people who are not your own parents. I just never felt the love at home. So by the time that I had graduated, my husband, who we'll call Zach, and I had been very, very serious. At this point, we had been together for more than 3 years. So we decided that instead of me going back home, where I didn't feel loved, maybe I might just move in with him. I moved in with my husband, who we'll call Zach, and honestly, that was the best decision ever. I felt so much at peace. And also, if you've been to uni, you know the freedom of living alone. You don't want to go back home. So it just felt like from uni, I had my own home. Also, the fact that I was raised by my aunt who didn't really care much about me. Even when I didn't come back home, I was never asked and no one ever really checked up on me. So all I'm trying to say is it was very easy moving in with Zach. I had all my reasons and I felt they made so much sense to me. But even though my aunt didn't really show me much love, let me mention that she is the reason that I ended up studying in uni, because she had some connections and through her connections I was able to get a scholarship. Anyway, moving forward to when Zach and I started to live together, if you remember, I mentioned that Zach was working. Let me also mention here that Zach was working, but his job was not really paying much. So once we started to live together, it was automatic that I also needed to supplement some of the things at home. Before I moved in, he was very open enough to tell me that he cannot afford both of us, so we might have to do 50-50 when it comes to finances and everything else. And to be honest, as long as it involved me and Zach living together, I was willing to sacrifice any and everything. But for me, the problem started that I had just recently graduated, and in this economy, it's not very easy getting a job. So it took me some good time before I could financially help the both of us. But the method that I chose for help was what was diabolical. The fact that I was not working, it meant that I needed to find something to do, and that something was not coming quick. And I was putting Zach under so much pressure because I would hear him complain about things were too much for him, his job was not paying him much. And one day he brought a very weird suggestion. Thinking of his suggestion now is stomach churning, but then I just thought, you know what, he's just trying to help the both of us. So Zach's suggestion was he had a friend who was pretty wealthy and was looking for a girl because he was just bored. Nothing too serious. He told me maybe I could start going out with his friend while keeping our relationship very serious as well. That is the relationship that I have with Zach. I should just help his friend pass time and just do whatever I had to do with his friend so that he wouldn't be bored anymore. Apparently, this man was willing to pay money as long as he had someone to spend his time and money with. So Zach said this was a good deal. In case you're wondering, yes, Zach's friend knew that I was very much with his friend. But honestly, Zach's friend, who called John, said he doesn't care as long as I did what I needed to do with him, and when it was time for Zach, it was time for Zach. As long as I could separate the two roles, he was okay with it. Honestly, this was a very tough deal for me to take, but once Zach told me this would be a one-time thing, once I got the money, I could start a business, we wouldn't have to do it again, I was comfortable enough. But if you've ever felt how sweet it is to earn money without working so hard, you know that that can be a very addictive and continuous behavior. So once I was done with John introduced me to someone else who needed the same services, and before I knew it, I was the girl that these wealthy, lonely men would hang out with and pay for hanging out. And in case you're wondering, it was all types of hanging out, that inclusive. By the time I was in so deep, on some days I would wonder how we got here, but the money was so good, so every time I would start to wonder and feel bad about it, I would snap out of it because the money was good and Zach and I were finally living at least a decent life. Bear in mind that at this time also, Zach had quit his job because the money that I was making from spending time with these lonely men was quite a bit that Zach no longer needed his job. And that was mistake number one, because what do you mean you're the man of this house and you feel you no longer need a job? Anyway, before I knew it, these men became international. I was flying on international flights to go out with other men from other countries, and the money had gotten so good. Zach's life and I had changed drastically. I started to go to Dubai, and if you know the documentaries, I would do such things. Everything that it took for these men to give me the money, I would do it because I was already there. They had flown me in. It's like you're left with no option but to just do whatever these rich men want you to do. At this time, Zach's relationship and I was still just very much strong. He knew exactly what I was doing. He was supporting it. But as my man, he was very much my man and nothing to complain about. I mean, I was giving him the money that he needed. Now, call me a fool or whatever you'd like to call it, but All the money that I worked for, I would give it to Zach because he promised that he would invest it into other things like properties, would build, and within a few years, I could quit this job and would just live a very sustainable and financially sound life because he was investing in things. And I believed that he was, because Zach was this smart guy. I just believed he was investing anyway. And that was another mistake because I believed he was investing, but not even once did I ever see these investments. And at this point, remember, Zach was not working, so every small argument, he took it that I was just looking down on him. So even when he told me there were investments, I never felt the need to ask where they are because I didn't want him to feel like I don't trust him. I also didn't want him to feel like he's not a man enough, considering that I was the one providing all the finances for the home at this point. Now, I'm sure you're wondering at what point Zach and I got married. We actually never did, but at this point, we had been staying together for more than 8 years. So it's just like we had just forgotten about that part of life. Honestly, as a female, you know, as you get older, your biological clock is ticking. So I started to tell Zach that I wanted to have kids and probably quit this job because at this point, from the money that I had given him, we should have been well off. And at this point, it should mean that he had invested enough in properties. So even if I were to quit there and then, we would still be okay. So I started to tell Zach that it was finally time for me to quit and that we should finally focus on our family. And it was at that point that things started to go south. Let me also mention that after I was with Zach for about 4 years living together, my aunt finally reached out and told me, you know, if you have a man, it's okay that you should come home, let him come home, let him pay, so that you could be properly married. She also suggested that this would help me have some sort of stability in this home because she saw the money that we were making. She didn't know I was making the money, but she felt if this marriage with Zach ended, I would go with nothing because we were not legally married. But for me, since this suggestion came from my aunt, I just took it that she just wanted money from Zach because obviously he had to pay my bride price, which was not paid. And I told Zach to shy away from the whole idea. I told him it wasn't necessary, and that was another mistake. I'm sorry, but you have to go to part 2. Anyway, when I told Zach to shy away from this idea, you could tell the excitement in Zach's eyes. And for me, I just felt like, oh, I've done my man a favor. He doesn't have to go through the entire process of paying my dowry because my aunt would just chop that money. It wouldn't really do much for her because I thought, where have you been all these years? This is when you're reaching out. And the first time you reach out, you tell me this man should come home and pay. It just seemed like she just wanted some money to go by. But you know, when you're in love, you want everything to make sense according to what you think, but not according to logic. So for me, this made so much sense, and I was very happy with Zach not paying. We just agreed that we would live together, and in my country, after living together for a certain duration with a man, you're considered married. So I just thought, you know what, we'll just wait for that time frame, and after that, we'll be married. 8 years go by, and I'm still hustling in this industry that makes absolutely no sense. No one even knew that this was my job. Everyone just thought Zach was the one working because he was always busy. He was never home. But the moment that I realized that he was never home should have been the moment that my eyes should have opened, but I was dumb and in love. I also mentioned here that at this point I had met Zach's family, I had met his siblings, but he told me his parents were late, so the only people I had met are his siblings, some older, others younger. Honestly, by meeting his siblings, I had absolutely no reason not to believe that this man is mine and mine alone. There was never a time that I doubted that Zach had someone else because we were living together. Every time I traveled, I would leave him home. I would never find anything suspicious. He was just like a very good grounded man, and he was just supporting my hustle because it was his suggestion anyway. At this point, I was in so deep in this hustle that I was even connecting other girls. So I was not only making money from this hustle alone, I was also making money from connecting other girls to these wealthy men. Now here's where everything went downhill. I'm almost clocking 30. I had been doing this for well over 4 years. I had just gotten so tired. It had taken a toll on my body, and I was just becoming guilty. And also, remember, I have mentioned that I wasn't only making money from spending time with these men, I was also making money from connecting other girls. So it was no longer necessary that I work so hard. I started to tell Zach that it was finally time for us to have kids, and that's where his problem started because he started to tell me, no, the money is not yet enough. You still have to keep going, at least do it for 1 more year. I did it for 1 more year. Another year came around, and it was always the same excuse. And after that, I started to doubt if these investments were actually there. Lo and behold, one day I gathered enough confidence and just told him, you know what, let's go to these investments. Show me the houses, show me the things you have bought with this money, because all I was seeing was the house we were living in, which I can confirm we bought because the title was in the house, though it was in his name. He told me he had to buy the house when I wasn't around, and it was an offer that was too good that it would go away, but the house was in his name, which I can agree was bought. But everything else I had not seen, not even any documentation. The day I asked this question, all hell broke loose, and he was just telling me how I don't don't trust him. He just really gaslighted me into thinking, you know what, I'm a bad woman. Why don't I just trust my husband and just go on with life? I should trust that he's securing our future. Remember, he was not allowing me to stop working, and he still wasn't working. And you know how it is as a female, you also want to be taken care of by your man. So it just started to bother me that I was doing everything for the past 4 years plus. So one day, even without his approval, I decided to just stop taking clients and just see where this whole thing would take us if I was no longer working. Because this marriage started to seem like it was becoming very transactional. When I decided to stop taking clients, this is when all hell broke loose, because if I tell you we were so broke that you couldn't even tell that we were the same people that once lived so well. We were broke, though we were still in our own house, if that counts for something. It got so bad that even if I asked Zach to buy me a few clothes, he said he couldn't afford it. We don't have the money because I stopped working. Everything was just like it was my fault. But this whole time he told me I was working because he was investing and we would stop. Remember, this was just supposed to stop after his friend number one, Mr. John, but it went on for so long. What do you mean we still don't have money? As these arguments got worse, Zach and I just stopped having a good relationship, and slowly he stopped showing up more at home. He was just never home. All of a sudden he was working, he was out with his friends. So I just thought, you know what, maybe he's trying to hustle. Until one day Zach had been out for more than a month. We hadn't spoken because the relationship had gotten so bad. I'm scrolling through my Facebook just trying to type out his name, and I noticed that I'm actually blocked. In my head I'm thinking, no, this can't be happening, or maybe I have just, I don't know, maybe he accidentally blocked me. But then I had a dummy account because I didn't want anyone to know what I was doing for work. So I had a dummy account that I would use to follow these rich men or even inbox them. Sometimes it was also the account that would use to communicate. So I decided to use that account to look him up, and lo and behold, I found him. But the most shocking thing was I found wedding pictures with a lady that was introduced to me as his sister. For a minute I thought, you know what, probably he's going to marry another girl and do the same thing that he did to me. But no, this lady was actually introduced to me as his sister. Remember I mentioned that I met some of his family at one point? Actually, none of those people were real. Those people were just acting like they're his siblings. None of those people are related to him. And this girl was very much aware that Zach was using me to raise money for their wedding and the life after. If I tell you that this wedding was so big, it became a whole social media sensation. It was trending for a few weeks, and every single day that I would see this post trending, it's as if my heart was being stabbed all over again. I had just wasted 8 years of my life in total at this point, and I'm left with no home, because remember, the home that I was in still is under Zach's name. Also, no money. I'm so broke, and I was a graduate. I could have easily used my education for other things, but 8 years has gone by and I did nothing for myself but just ruin my life. Anyway, at this point I was thinking, you know what, let's not cry over spilt milk. I just thought, let me fight to keep this house. I finally reached out to my aunt. Obviously she couldn't help anymore because she felt so disrespected that I went against her wishes, and only then did I realize that my aunt actually had my best interest at heart, because these same things are the things that she told me about. In case you're wondering, yes, Zach did kick me out of the house. There's nothing I can do. There's no way I can prove that this was my money, because some of it was rendered to him in cash. There's just really nowhere for me to start, and I'm back living with my aunt, and this has been a waste of 8 years of my life. That was so much to unpack, but if you were in the shoes of our good sis, what would you do? Because 8 years is so long. You ended up using your body. You ended up denting your reputation, because obviously at this point I'd like to assume more people than one know that this is what she was doing for a living. And then at the end of the day, you even lose your husband or your man, because they were never actually officially married, and then you're back at your aunt's house who you once disowned. Yikes. Anyway, what advice would you leave for a good sis? Because this one is a tight situation. But from me to you, as always, love you, bye.